I was in a local art gallery today, which inspired me to make these comments. Um, and I'll not name the gallery or where it was, doesn't really matter in some ways. Um, but it's quite a big place and a lot of work and a lot of paintings and prints and all sorts of things in it. Um, and really, I was just browsing around. Hadn't been in this particular gallery for a very long time, and you know, just picking out things, no ideas other than that. And it came to my mind. It was interesting because uh, it's a commercial gallery, so everything was for sale, and obviously there was a lot of work which was um, commercial in the sense that it would be very suitable with people's decor, if you like, and it was made for that reason. So there were paintings that were clearly made, with a decorative function. But there were other paintings and drawings and things as well. So there were literally hundreds of these things. And it took a long time to sort of find my way into it. And I realized, it takes a long time to pick from a situation like that, pick things that are interesting to you or you think are good or whatever. And among all these pictures and things was work by some people I knew, actually, and I think perhaps at least one former student of mine. And there were big paintings, small paintings, and little drawings. And among all these, there were people who I knew, and I knew were very respected in their particular field, and have been involved in the arts for a very long time, at least as long as me, and have a lot of thought behind the work in many ways, meanings that they've been struggling with and so on. But in amongst, so they were all sewed in amongst. Every now and again we'd spot one of these things, and it suddenly made me realize that where those paintings were, where those works were, maybe it didn't fit, in the sense that the moment I looked at those images beside the other things that were going on, they were kind of neutralized, because when I focused on them, I knew there were things in those particular works that were of quite deep personal importance. And right beside them, or nearby, there were other paintings that, in my opinion, were designed as a decorative thing, to be sold for that reason, which is fine also. But because they were mixed, suddenly the meaning and the gravitas, the significance of the things that were going on in those other works, particularly the small ones, felt lost. So basically, it made me realize, but reinforced what I do believe, that a painting, let's say a painting or a drawing, the life of those paintings don't stop once you get off the easel. Once they're done and signed or maybe put in the frame, that's not the end of the life of that work of art, because then it becomes crucial about where it is, how it's shown, what it's shown with, when it's shown even, and who the audience is, and that determines how it's read and the perception of what people think of it. So I was looking at these particular pieces, and I knew, because I knew the artist had these certain significant meaning to them. But I would suspect that someone else walking in off the street, maybe didn't know those artists and what they were about, would, because of where they were amongst all the other stuff, seen them as another decorative piece. If that so I don't know. I hope I'm making sense with this, these comments. So suddenly the positioning of those paintings became important, and I tried to imagine if we'd extracted those pieces that I was talking about and taken them away from that environment, put them in another gallery, an empty space, and it was just all of the work by that one artist, or maybe even the mixture of work by that particular group of artists. Obviously, the meaning would change, your focus would change, because they all have a certain type of quality to them that fits together. Whereas when they were mixed with the pictures of dogs and cats and pretty, flowers and things that are, were, let's say, obviously, if you like, decorative, then it was different. So I think what I'm saying to those people who are watching this, particularly who paint, to remember that's quite important. That when you finish the painting on your easel or wherever, and whatever reason you do for that painting, perhaps it's a painting about life and death, or a painting about somewhere important to you, or maybe it has significance. It may not. Maybe it's purely decorative and it's pretty and that's it. But if you have put something into it that's very personal, it's very important then what happens after that. So the journey after that's critical, because if you want to communicate something, if you place that work of art in a different place with different company, then it kind of gets lost. A bit like voices, someone might be a quiet speaker, but might have a very, very important thing to say. But you place them in a crowd of people all shouting, they get lost. But yet they're still significant. So, that's something to think about. Where you place your painting and where you hang it and what galleries you hang it is entirely up to us. So we're free to do that. And yes, we are always caught between, do you want to sell work? Do you want to sell your paintings? That's something that every artist, and most artists would probably say, yeah, it would be nice to sell, even if it's only to bring back money to buy more paints or something. So it's that, and that's totally all right. So there is a dilemma. There'll be times when we may put work in a group situation which might be conducive to selling it, perhaps, but at the same time, perhaps it loses, for the viewer coming in to see that, will lose its significance and power of expression. It won't hit that audience with the same ooh factor that it might have done if it was on its own in a one-person show, perhaps. But then one-person shows are not easy for an artist to get and organize. So I think I'm just pointing that point out, and maybe advising people to think hard about how you balance that, and how important it is that you want to sell that work. Are you happy enough, if you want to sell it that much, that you put it in a certain situation and be prepared for it to lose some of those qualities that I've spoken about? And even on a practical level, just changing one more time, on a very practical level, the way work is displayed, this particular gallery had hundreds of pieces of work, literally, cheek by jowl, right? No spaces whatsoever. That's because it was in the business of selling. So it was just one big marketplace, if you like. And that's okay. If that belongs to that, sort of person's way of thinking. But that also changes the way we perceive the work. If it's crowded and it's full of diverse things that have no relationships, then it becomes a blur. It becomes just a great big, like going into a carpet shop with lots of carpets, which are all different patterns. We have to find our way through them. Whereas if we even space those out, so in other words, if I'd been able today to take half of those works of paintings off the wall, and with the others space them apart, the way everyone would see them would probably be different. And it would be, you would give them more seriousness. When you place something with a space around it, you're saying, this is important. It's got its own space, and it's something that I want you to look at. If you crowd it right up side by side, you're saying they're all the same. Nothing. One thing is no more important than the other. So therefore, it's simply lost. It's just like a crowd, a shouting crowd, and you're hit by that. So think as well about how you even present your work when you're presenting it yourself. And framing as well, the same thing. lot of the pictures that I saw, because they were commercially based, if you like, had very overly decorative frames, overly gilded, meant to look good in perhaps a certain living room. And when you put them beside those works that I mentioned earlier, by the people that I mentioned earlier, or thought about earlier, it devalues them. I think it doesn't devalue them inherently, but at that moment when you're viewing it, it devalues the power of that work of art. So I think it's like the company we keep, no matter what we are and we believe we are, if we keep bad company and we're constantly seen within that bad company, we're just mashed in with the rest of it. We're just tarred with the same brush, as it were. So that's really all I've got to say about that. It was just a visit to a gallery that triggered all this. But I do think it's something that is important to think about, especially for those people who paint.